Hello, Lightbox 2021. Welcome to the Bento Box panel. My name is Brooke Kiesling. I'm head of animation talent development at Bento Box Entertainment, meaning I look for talent to hire in our LA studio, our Atlanta studio, and sometimes also our Australia studio. And now I'll introduce you to our panelists, Ben and Chloe. If you guys just want to say what you do, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Ben Jones. I'm the creative director at Ben Jones. Bento Box. Do I want to own the company? No, because I'm a crazy artist. But they put me in charge of development and all the cool creative stuff here at Bento Box. My history is that I kind of did the same thing at that thing called Fox ADHD, which did awesome stuff online, on FXX, on FX, on Fox. And before that, I had done stuff with Adult Swim and Cartoon Network, where I met Brooke, who was awesome. And kind of that overlap of those communities and energy of Brooke and Cartoon Network and everything I mentioned is the stuff we're most excited about at Bento Box and inside of development. And I hope to kind of put that philosophy into action with everything we talk about today. I'll shut up, I'm rambling.
That's okay. Chloe.
I'm Chloe Shipko. I'm the development coordinator at Bento Box. So I kind of work under Ben and help all the different facets work, I guess, be organized, and I kind of see what's going on in different departments. So yeah.
So our goal today is knowing that the Lightbox audience probably has a lot of people who would like to pitch now or maybe later in their lives or in their careers. So the hope of our panel is to try to demystify pitching, because it can be a little bit daunting or mysterious especially when you're a student. So I'm just going to launch into a few questions. Feel free to go on whatever tangents come to your mind. The first one is, how does one go about pitching to Bento Box? Like, I want to pitch, I have a thing and I want to pitch it. It might be the next big show. How would I go about that? Or how would someone do that?
Great question. And here starts the great confusing aspect of how I talk and think. But with it is honesty and transparency. I think everything we bought and everything we're pushing up and championing, it comes through agents and it comes through a system. So the simple question the simple answer might be, you have representation, they submit the material, or sometimes we go out to reps and say, hey, we're looking for this. Probably 100% of the stuff we're doing is that, but I always look for cracks and I'm always a little weird. I think the question ultimately is like, well, what are those agents? What are those reps doing? And how do we get to be a part of, how would you get to be part of that conversation? Or how did I? And I think the two ways I would say into that and around that and whatever, celebrating the whole spirit of getting a foot in the door, is doing awesome stuff either online or with friends or festivals or organizing things, and just getting stuff out there. If it's zine fairs, if it's merchandise, if it is social media, if it is the internet, 1,000,000,000,000% that can immediately lead to I think representation of many different types, and Brooke can even maybe speak to this more, but I think what can lead to a better, cleaner, faster representation into the pitch process is totally being yourself. And there's kind of this weird golden rule is maybe at that stage, it's better to be found than to be shopping yourself around. As weird as that sounds, but maybe I haven't even thought about this in the right way. Brooke, to put that question back to you, like, am I way off, or how would we talk about those first steps in terms of getting reps?
I would say you're not way off. I would say that, if you're in school and your teachers are nagging you to finish your film, there is a reason, because we all are combing Vimeo and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram to see who's making cool stuff. And if you're one of those people who makes an amazing film that travels to some festivals or just goes bananas online, you're going to get calls from people like us and from agents and managers. So it is preferable to have some kind of representation for pitching, but I might be your first stop at Bento Box because you might want to be a storyboard artist on one of our shows. And then we see how great you do with that. And then we say to our internal employees, hey, we would love some of you to pitch. And some people don't want to have their own show, so they don't pitch, but the ones who do can do that. So establishing yourself before, like just keep making stuff and putting it out there, and then it'll help you get representation later if you want that.
That is totally true. There's total ways to kind of pitch internally, but I realize even something which is like, if Brooke or I or Chloe saw something in any state and fell in love with it, we would get you the rep.
Yeah.
And we would tell the rep to come pitch us. So it's not, I hate to like put these hierarchies and these gates we have to cross through. But it's just one of these aspects. And there's so many different types of representation. There's lawyers, there's management companies, there's traditional agents. But I think what I'm hearing in Brooke, which is very important as well, is like, it'll be the friends and working inside of kind of these communities or systems that will raise everyone up. So storyboarding, again, freelance character design, that is 100% the way forward, regardless. I was listening to this weird podcast last night, and just this random bit of advice was like, it's the decisions to veer off of the path which will get you further ahead to your goal. Meaning, like, again, sending your portfolio to an agent, probably not right, but going out there, putting together a zine with your friends, and some of those friends are character designers for a cool show, doing stuff like that. And then that starts to cross-pollinate and you're working inside of those systems. That's a great way, I think, to just get on the radar of so many different people and certainly reps.
Yeah. And then Chloe, I was going to say, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, Zoom, you always talk over each other. I was going to say, going off of that, I'd say, like, from my own experience, I'm more on the development scripted side than the animation side, but I think focusing on relationships and meeting people that are your own age, like people that are young and also trying to come up at the same time as you, is, like, I think more valuable than trying to reach out to people that you want to be someday, because, like, reaching out to the head of the company, it's hard for them to actually help you because like, they don't know about the lower level jobs or those connections. But if you reach out to someone who's your, like, peer, you guys kind of all, like, rise together. That's been my experience, like, being an assistant for the past, I don't know, 7 years. Like, suddenly all my friends who we all started out together are starting to get cooler jobs and, like, getting to be writers on shows and stuff. And so it's sort of like you rise together. So I think sometimes people think they need to meet the head of the company to get ahead, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. Sorry, my dog is barking now. I don't know if you can.
That's okay. And then just for clarification, if you do have an agent or a manager already, have them reach out to us if you want to pitch to us. And one thing I'll say is never send an unsolicited pitch. Don't ever email us, here's a pitch you didn't ask for, and send us all the materials, because legally we can't really look at that. But if you say, I want to pitch to you guys, here's my Instagram, and here's, where my cool stuff lies, then we could say if we want to have a pitch meeting or not. So no studios that I've ever worked at, and I've worked at a big handful of them now, none of them take unsolicited pitches at this point, just as an FYI. My next question for y'all was, what do you look for in a pitch? Which is a big question, but tackle that question however you like.
Yeah, I think there's a two-part answer. I think it comes down to not paying too much attention to the pitch, as crazy as that sounds, but really getting a read or a vibe off the creator and off of the approach. And secondary to that, once that has an impact, and that could come from any aspect of the pitch, truly, the material. This will make sense maybe in 1 second. Once that impression is set in, I start to do the math of where are the buyers, where is potentially the need or a path. Because in a weird way, I don't look for pitches, which I know sounds crazy. I'm only ever kind of aware of opportunities and want to help people.
Yes.
So I don't have a quota, or I don't look at 5 pitches a day and get to pick my favorite one. It's just this weird kind of like, it's the first day of high school. Who are my friends? And I know like, or who could possibly tolerate me as a human? And like, I know there's a cool thing going on later tonight. If that person has a car, maybe we could all drive there in high school terms. So unfortunately, the content of a pitch, weirdly enough, isn't the first thing that strikes me, which is insane. Now that said, like I'm thinking of all these amazing student films and kind of miraculous pitches. Like certainly those are important. And I would say like, I would never even want to put kind of buzzwords or filters or mandates onto what and why you should be developing, but I will give some general notes in a second, because I think honestly, if the material just impacts and inspires, again, the opportunities or what we look for, if the creator's open, we'll be able to kind of latch on and figure out, well, this could be an interesting movie. This could be an interesting kind of romantic comedy. This could be an interesting that. So maybe what we do look for, other than opportunities or kind of just a general tonal thing, is really like our characters. And characters can be a lot of things, you know, like I know that sounds weird, but characters can be the dynamics, the archetypes, you know, someone's relationship with their phone, just like, you know, or things. Once those things really pop, I think, or if something like that pops, that becomes, you know, the icing on the cake, certainly. And then, you know, what do those back up into? Well, they back up into adult animated content or children's animated content. I would think that's the first fork in the road. Maybe there's a third fork, which is like co-viewing, which is like Pixar, or 4-quadrant, meaning like a whole family could watch it. And weirdly,
there's preschool also.
There's preschool too. And I think like, by the way, there's shows now that are blurring that. You know, a thing like Bluey is like, is that adult? Like, and obviously Adventure Time to this day is still like a show that culturally and just creatively crossed all the wires. And I think like genres like that or shows like that are fair to kind of explore. Now I want to be clear. If the ask is truly like, hey, what types of shows are we looking for? I wouldn't ever, I'll be very clear, like those you can find on Wikipedia. It's a workplace, it's an ensemble, it's a two-hander, it's a romantic comedy. I also look at that fucking website, TV Tropes. Like, if we're making TV, which is a commodity, which goes through pipes and is like fast food and has to be a certain length, like, let's not trick ourselves. That is TV. If we want to lean into that, we should do that consciously. If we're really trying to do something that's a character study and that we want to kind of ease into and find the right place, that's something different. I would just maybe avoid like, hey, there's never been a show about Dungeons and Dragons underwater. That's why I'm creating a new genre. It's called Underwater Dragons. And see, the show is going to be serialized, but backwards, because every streamer, I think, needs a backwards, upside down show underwater. Like, that isn't the kind of stuff we want. We want like, hey, this is Danny McBride. He's like a screw up and he moved home. Then I'm like, wait, what?
Very interesting. We have a pitch deck that Ben put together.
So I'll run you through right now, just the general kind of way I structure a pitch as a creator, and maybe even as a development executive, what I kind of want to hear when I'm being lied to. And I'll drop that whole shtick about lying, but it's true that, you know, if something's set up, even in the language of a Steve Jobs, even in the language of a passion project, to me, it's just a better way of saying, hey, we're all being honest with each other. Here's the material. I see we've all thought about this stuff. Let's talk about it. Maybe something's not 100%, but that's okay. It's a collaboration at the end of the day. Maybe that's the big thesis, be it who you're working with, who you're pitching to. Again, it's not a lottery system. We're not here to knight anyone. Ultimately, it's a mutually assured destruction. It's a collaboration. So what is a type of pitch? I will now move my screen sharing feature to a Keynote file. And here's an old pitch of mine that follows kind of a general approach, both structurally and visually, and thematically, maybe as well. With pitches, I love, and this is maybe specific to animated pitches, I love to start with photos, with the 10,000 hours of research, with the lifelong passion. What I'm sharing with you today is a pitch kind of based on my experiences growing up with a mom who was a witch, an actual Wiccan witch. And so in this pitch, I start off with the fact that in 1991, I was so close to being normal. I could almost grow sideburns. I was on a soccer team. And then one day my mom came downstairs and she told me in the center of my idyllic New England town, she was opening a witch store. So this speaks to kind of the 10,000 hours. It speaks to something personal to me. I also think it speaks to kind of, you know, a universal idea or theme of someone feeling like a failure, feeling like an underdog, feeling like an outsider. That doesn't hurt, I don't think. And so in this pitch and in general pitches, starting with a bigger concept, a bigger theme. Like I said, being able to speak to that theme, either through research, either through your passion. So in this pitch, I kind of run through these references, like I said, with photos, maybe I mentioned that. Kind of, I like the idea of photos at the top of a pitch or material, documentary material, let's just say. And then what that allows you to do, and I think we actually just saw it with the Steve Jobs pitch. I always forget he's showing the BlackBerry. He's showing the other stuff first, right? He's showing you the context. And then you kind of have, in this case, a big reveal after a bunch of context we see here on the left. You have a big reveal to say, well, I'm going to do an animated show about kind of a family that lives next door to some crazy witches. And it's kind of like a modern disembodied family, decentralized family amongst some crazy people. And that mirrors my upbringing, and it's a funny situational kind of dynamic with crazy people, with normal people, with kids, with adults, the adults always being younger than the kids always being older than the adults, but liking to kind of introduce out of, like I said, those reference photos, just kind of the big billboard image, the big kind of finished art, what you would feel like on a billboard. Just so you get the big idea, is this The Simpsons? Is this Final Space? And truly that's something visual, but it's also kind of just, what is that elevator pitch at the top coming out of the context? After the context, kind of then, what is that world? What is the Disneyland map of your situation? But then immediately going into, and this is such a cheesy thing, I'm so embarrassed to show you, this is such an old pitch, but immediately going into characters. I don't care about the world, and you can see this world is like black and white. I think we just tried to say it's an eastern town on the west coast of the country, so you're getting kind of east meets west. But immediately then talking about characters, and not even like some fucking adjectives about characters, just 100%, what are those archetypes And I'm going to give you some cliff notes in a moment, truly about how characters can and should and will drive story, drive the comedy. This is, again, embarrassing that I'm sharing this. I shouldn't even share this, but what are just obvious characters that you just know? And I'm not even name dropping celebrities here, but it's clear that it's like, oh, I can see the archetype. I can see what we're going with here through these references of performers. And not that that's like stunt casting or like, oh, I put together celebrities. It's to say, here's amazing performers who have embodied characters, and here's how we would like to create a platform or a world that could have these characters drive story and drive comedy. And truly that is the main part of a pitch. And like I said, if we back this into what I was saying about it being a known quantity, maybe that pertains to some of this. When I back this into saying it's a nirvana, again, if it's such an exciting pitch that feels of a time, of a place, we can kind of graft on some of that meaning into what I'm talking about now, as well as the big picture of this being a researched, being a passion project that you've spent a lot of time thinking about and doing, and that you would do anything in the world to do. Maybe not to try to seem desperate, but again, to try to show that like your successes and your failures go into making this a really considered good project. Sometimes then showing how those characters can work inside of funny situations. This is not homework. I don't truly believe a development exec has a checklist and now has to hear that you have 3 episode ideas and the pilot's going to set up. No, it's like, well, here's a fucking little baby and a knife. Oh, this was the baby that's crazy and she's in a knife box. She's in the knife box. Not the best idea, not the funniest thing I've ever seen, but I think that it's exciting for me as a development exec just to kind of cut to the chase and show how these characters are going to work inside of a format of an episode, and how maybe at the end of the day, they're going to be funny as well. I think when we're talking about animation too, it's I won't even get into like why is something animated or something, but I think like finding the kind of immediate funniness of moments that you can just draw doesn't hurt. And lastly, something I sometimes like to do is just put kind of some animation to this, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary to do any of the type of art I just showed. This was more, oh, hey, you contextualize something, you talked about the world, and then you showed how these characters deliver. I think that is somewhat consistent to what I was saying in terms of giving a vibe or an indication of a context or who I am, and then having characters kind of come and pop up front and center, and having the world and the situations kind of activate those characters. And I think for that, it was very much kind of leaning in or deconstructing but acknowledging and celebrating the traditional family animated sitcom.
Fair enough. Chloe, do you have anything to add to that, or do you want us to move to the next thing?
Sure. I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of the same stuff Ben was saying, I think sometimes the misconception with pitches is that you have to come up with the best idea, like the best concept ever. But really, it's like, I feel like we care more about the creators and their point of view and like their sense of comedy and like what they have to say. Sometimes people come at it from the wrong direction, where like Ben said, they're trying to mash up things or like think of what we've never seen before. But a lot of the shows we see are like the same as shows that we've seen before, but we still love them because genres just repeat the same stuff over and over again. So I don't think it needs to be the best, newest idea ever. It just has to like tell a story of who the creator is.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's exciting for all of us because we love seeing what, I won't just say young people, but it seems like, just new things come out of people who are thinking about things differently. And maybe they didn't grow up on all the things that we watched when we grew up. So I love that the entertainment, media machine is a never ending, very hungry beast that we always have to keep feeding. So, and you, the audience, some of you are going to be the people who help us feed that. My next question is, do you take pitches for all demographics? I guess we kind of answered that though. So let me skip that. Well,
Well, no, that's fair. Look, yeah,
I
look,
mean, like, we're kind of known for adult programming, think adult animated shows at Bento Box, but we do make all kinds of shows. So
and we'll tell your reps what we need that week. And yeah, I think Bento Box and Bento Box development again is, we just want to be this workshop or this lab that amplifies what buyers and creators are doing. So
yeah.
we don't have what are we specializing in? We're specializing in Fox and we're specializing in comedy creators because those two things are magnetic right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird, but I want to say this, like, we don't make TV shows at Bento Box. I'm gonna get fired for saying that, but I don't ever want to. I don't want to ever telegraph that we're your golden ticket. TV networks pay for them, and you, the creators, make them. We are here just as the ultimate kind of like cue from James Bond. And with Brooke and Chloe and Joel and everyone here, you just get to work with all these specialists that you could never dream of to kind of facilitate that to happen. And I truly mean, and sometimes that does, guess what, outweigh what the network and can amplify even the sum of your parts so that something does get made. And very often we are the thing that makes the show. But I don't want us to think of that way because I don't just inherently like those hierarchies. And just as the creative here, I want to kind of always just embrace the chaos and anarchy of art making, and just to give you the full trust and freedom, because that's truly where art comes from.
Yeah, which is wonderful. Chloe, do you have anything to add to that?
I think Ben said it better than I could. I don't know. The next question.
What can a student or a very recent grad do right now to prepare themselves to pitch later? Most people don't get a show right out of school. We can think of some examples where they did. Sometimes it's really hard on them to get a show right out of school because they haven't worked on a show, and they can't, like when you have your own show, you're the leader of that show, and maybe you don't have any management experience. Like there's a lot involved. So what advice would you guys give to people how they could prepare right now for something later?
Wow. Chloe, you go first. I have to think about that.
I was gonna say you said a good story the other day. I don't know if you want to say it, but remember you were talking about someone in college visiting and what the advice they gave you. But I feel like it kind of goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of this conversation. Like I think just making stuff and collaborating and learning from the people you're collaborating with is probably the best way to prepare. Like I feel like it's like you can't really prepare for pitching by learning about pitching, because pitching, like we kind of think it's sort of like a sales tool for selling your idea. So I think starting by creating things and learning about that process and how they come up with ideas is a much better use of your time than like studying pitch decks and trying to come up with pitches, because pitching isn't the end goal or even the thing that you're making. It's just a way of expressing that. So I think you have to start with making stuff and learning about creating ideas.
Yeah. While Ben's thinking on his answer, I will chime in and say, I remember being with Penn Ward, who created Adventure Time years ago, and we were out at a convention, and some young people came up and they said, how do I do something? How do I make this thing? Like, how do I get a show so I can make this thing? And he just kept saying, just make things. Just keep making things. Don't wait for someone to give you permission to make a thing. Make a thing. We might find it. We want to find it. And we might say, oh, that's not exactly what we can use, but we like a lot about that. So are you interested in developing it more with us? So that can happen too.
Yeah, such a good question, because I immediately think like, what would I have what would I tell myself coming out of mass art, that first year? And not to get really creepy, but I would say, like, believe in yourself
Mhm.
first and foremost. Like, everything will be okay. Um, and to what you fear, if you confront that, will give you strength. Like, be it shyness, be it like, oh, I mean, so many things, right, hold us back, or there's voices in our heads. And I think sometimes those are our greatest superpower. I don't know, it's a dumb saying now, but I think, like, attacking those two things and truly will get, would have got me and did get me into a place maybe where I could collaborate more
Mhm.
and I could be a better friend to people. And I truly think once that happens, you'll get a job, you'll get representation, you'll be able to make stuff. But you know what, I think maybe the believing in yourself is sometimes the kind of barrier to making stuff. Like, oh, this isn't good, or I'm no good, or something like that. Maybe I'm being too reductive there, but let's try to squash that. And if that's your mom or dad's voice in your head, um,
Don't listen.
fuck them. Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think artists are famous artist writers. Imposter syndrome is rampant in our industry. So just go, okay, maybe I don't believe that I'm really the real thing, but don't let that stop you from still making the thing.
Yeah. And by the way, like, I'm complaining, like, um, it was all fucking handed to me probably. So fuck that. Like, if shit's not handed to you and you don't have examples, like, think of all the stupid examples I had around me that were like just versions of me. And I'm being honest now, like, let's also just completely destroy that, because I guarantee you, Chloe and I will actually be going out of our way to kind of look for people breaking the status quo. And I think just as trying to evolve the way we all think, like, that's such a more interesting starting point. And we never ever, okay, I will, maybe this is a story you were telling, Chloe, but I don't think it was, but I'll put it this way, like, um maybe I shouldn't say this on the record, but I'm patterning how we look for talent based on another huge important company. And that huge important company that was technology was looking for specialists that had to do a very special thing, like the most highly complicated thing. Let's say it was Apple. And, they need scientists that know how to mold aluminum in a very specific way. And they need to take that and hire 20 more of those people. And, like, how do you find these specialists? And, like, and certainly how are you a specialist if you're coming from a situation where those opportunities weren't extended to you? This is what the company said, which is the best company. They're all evil companies, but a really great company. It's what I pattern kind of our behavior after, I hope, which was, anyone can learn anything. I don't even give a shit if you've ever drawn or opened a storyboard thing. Like, are you funny and, like, cool to talk to? That's it. That's how a company wants to, that's how the best restaurants, that's how the most technical company wants to populate its team.
Mhm.
Because anyone can learn that shit. I don't care about this 10,000 hours of shit. You should be 10,000 hours of being a human being and learn and just be open to learning and collaborating. And that's the truth. And from that, we can invest and people can invest in that type of energy. And in that way, we can go against the status quo and kind of the inherent systems that are unfair.
Awesome. Chloe, do you have anything you want to, any advice, any general advice, even if it's not exactly that topic? Just, you meet with so many artists and writers, like, it doesn't have to always be someone who draws, right? We hear from writers as well. Like,
Yeah. I was just gonna say off of what Ben was saying, like I think this applies to like if you're a writer or animator or producer or whatever. Like I think people are scared to make things because they're worried it's not gonna be good, but I feel like you have to make bad stuff before you make good stuff. So you should just make it and it's probably gonna be bad. And then after making it, you'll realize like all the ways it was bad and how to make the next thing like not have those same mistakes. I think like that's a big hurdle is like, yeah, believing in yourself and wanting your stuff to be good, but it can't be good until you learn how to make it good. So I think my advice would be, yeah, just like don't overthink what you're making, even just like do it.
Yeah. One of my mentors at Cal Arts when I was in school just said, you got to get all your bad drawings out of you before you can get to some of the good ones. So just like, don't expect them to be good. But if you come up with a great one, you know, that's awesome. I mean, back when photography was done on film, we would get contact sheets and you'd take like 30 pictures and there might be one really special one on that whole roll. So, and you know, you can't expect everything to be perfect, and you'll learn a lot from your so-called failures as well.
Yeah, and also like not on the away from the animation side, on the writing side, I think people should not be scared to like take entry level jobs and just like learn stuff like while they're writing on the side, because that's how a lot of my friends on the writing side kind of work their way up. It's just like learning and meeting people and being patient.
Yeah, I know a lot of writers who started as executive assistants or PAs just to kind of like be in the environment, or show assistants, and then they, you know, talk to whoever's running the show and say, hey, can I pitch something, you know, for the show, like a spec script, and then they can get notes on something like that. And just, you know, I think recent grads and people in school always think they have to get their dream job right out of school or sell their pitch right out of school, and it's like, things can take longer than that, and that's fine.
Yeah,
you might be better off if it does take longer because you'll have more experiences under your belt.
The thing is never the thing.
The thing is never the thing. We just have a few more minutes. Do either of you have just some like kind of just parting general advice that, you know, maybe something you wish you could tell some of the people who pitched to you, or something you wish you had known about how it all works?
And maybe if you're a person who does believe in yourself, then it's like focusing on patience and compassion. I don't know. Yeah, characters and their dynamics. I think that's just something I'm just kind of constantly just, it's like meditation or exercise. It's like you can't focus on that enough. And you can't break those things down enough. There's just such a beauty and a simplicity, like in cooking, salt and fat, you know, those are the things that are going to make something taste good. And in terms of pitching, those are the key things. So as I think about pitching later today and going forward, it's just like, how can I explain what this character is in one word that is just so immediate and just like, wow. And then guess what? The person next to them is like the exact person you wouldn't want to be next to them, because you know something bad is going to happen. And from that, there's something funny. Like that's why, you know, Seinfeld or Suicide Squad or Eastbound and Down or Infinity Train.
Yeah. Or Bob's Burgers.
Shit. Or Bob's Burgers.
Chloe, do you have any kind of parting advice that you would just love to share with them?
I don't. I think you should end on Ben's last thing.
My parting words for our audience, since it's not live and we can't take live Q&As, would be, there's no better time to work in animation than right now. Like you are poised at the exact perfect time to enter the world of animation if that's what you want to do. And there's some, you know, we post jobs all the time on our website, which is bentoboxent.com. And so there's many ways to get in, and, you know, just keep working at it. If you want your own show someday, if that's your true goal, I believe you will get there. if you just keep working at it and keep taking feedback and, improving things. So that's my 2 cents. Maybe that was 5 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone. Thank you, Lightbox, for having us.
Thank you, Lightbox.